It is April 28th, 2022. We're at the Pyle Center with Colleen Jennings-Roggensack. Thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be here.
Now, we like to start with the easy questions, like when and where were you born?
I was born in Lamarck, Texas in 1952.
And what brought you to Tempe?
President Laddie Kaur brought me to Tempe. I was at Dartmouth College running the Hopkins Center in 1992, and previous to that time, President Kaur had been the president at the University of Vermont.
Oh, okay.
And so he knew my work at the Hopkins Center. So he brought out myself and my husband to see if we wanted to come and live in Arizona and be at Arizona State University.
Very exciting. What did you think when did you come visit first and then decide?
A very funny thing happened.
Mm-hmm.
President Crow invited me out, and then he had a heart attack. It extended his honeymoon, which was a good thing, and believe it or not. And so in that amount of time, life went on, and I got pregnant, and then he invited me out again, and I said, I'm not coming till I have this baby. I am not leaving Hanover till I have this baby. And so our daughter was born, and then he asked my husband and I to come out and to see. And literally, we were on a college tour. My husband was finishing his PhD at Dartmouth in geology. He's a volcanologist. He works on volcanoes. And we had 4 different offers. We had dual offers. People kept saying we have, the job gods were kind to us. We had dual offers at the University of Texas in Austin. We had a dual offer at UCLA. We had a dual offer at Cal Berkeley, and then a dual offer here. So we were kind of making the rounds. And literally we just went, Arizona was nowhere on the list. But we got here and it was spring, so it was beautiful. And Laddie Kaur is an amazing man. And I said, well, this might be the place for us. And then several things happened. My husband said, we will never live in Texas, even though I was born in Texas. He was just like, I said, but it's Austin. He said, we're not gonna live there. And then in LA, they had the riots, and Rodney King was assaulted. And in San Francisco, they had an earthquake. And because my husband's a volcanologist, he said, no geologist in their right mind moves to a fault line. So we got here and we said, okay, we like it.
No earthquakes here.
No earthquakes here, sunshine, was very nice. And Laddie said, all right, then the job's yours. How long do you think you'll stay? And I looked at the situation, and it wasn't a very healthy situation for Gammage, which I was coming in to run ASU Gammage, is what he was bringing me in to do. And I said, you know, in 4 years' time, I can right this ship, and then we'll go on. Our goal was to come west, raise our daughter in the west, and then figure out what we wanted to do. And that was in 1992. And now it's 2022, and we still haven't left.
Yay!
But in that amount of time, my staff and I managed to turn ASU Gammage into an internationally renowned art center. So completed my word to Laddie, and his promise to me in taking the job was, he said, no matter what you have to do, I will always be behind you, holding your coat. And he was. He was absolutely always there for me.
Now, can you share a little bit about your role that you started in, and then you've actually...
It's changed.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot. So Laddie brought me in to be the executive director of ASU Gammage. But Gammage also included the Sun Dome in Sun City West, 7,000 seat theater, and the Care Cultural Center in Scottsdale, a 300-seater, and the Mona Plummer Aquatic Complex, which little did I know, later on in my life, it would have profound meaning. At the time, I was just like, why am I running the aquatic complex and the university club? And during the course of the time in being here, we went through 7 athletic directors. And as we would lose an athletic director, Laddie would say, could you run all the athletic facilities? And one of my team members, Terry Kramer, who is a Tempe resident and is our director of facilities, she would say, you know, they always ask you to do stuff like, could you take over the stadium? And it's like getting a dog, and the dog's like a really sad dog. and it's not looking very good, and nobody claims the dog, and you take that dog and you take good care of that dog and you make that dog a championship show dog, and then they bring in another athletic director and turn those facilities back over to them, and then that athletic director leaves and those facilities come back. So for many years I have been overseeing Sun Devil Stadium, what is now called Desert Financial Arena, and soon to be our new multi-purpose hockey arena. So it's always been a funny thing. It's come and gone. Same thing was true of the University Club. It was in dire need of some assistance, and my team and I took over the University Club and we turned it around, and then it went off to someone else once it was looking good. Same thing with the aquatic complex.
Now, for those of us that don't know, what is the University Club?
Oh, so the U Club is a place, it's an eating club on the campus. And most campuses have a club where faculty go and dine, or you bring your guests when you have guests coming. And it's part of the old portion of the campus. So there's Old Main and there's the University Club. Okay. So that and there's a fountain there, and it really represents the very early days of Tempe Normal College.
Oh. That's quite a diverse
portfolio.
Yes, of responsibilities.
It is. It gets much more interesting because that wasn't all.
Okay.
So that one day Laddie called me into his office and he said, you know, we celebrate Dr. King's birthday. I said, yes, I've been to the celebration, which essentially was a cup of coffee in a styrofoam cup and some dried breakfast thing. And he said, yes. He said, it should be better than that. And he said, would you just take it over for 2 years? And I said, yes, Laddie, I'll take it over for 2 years. Well, today, it is one of the signature pieces for Arizona State University. It is a year-long celebration of the tenets of Dr. King. We work with kindergartners through high schoolers in our student contests from across the country. Thousands of representations of what servant leadership means come in both writing and drawings and three-dimensional work, and it's really quite remarkable. On top of that, all of those young people, first they would receive savings bonds when we were able to do that, and now it's a check so that their education furthers along. And then we gave out 2 seminal awards, one to our community servant leader, and the very first year we did that, we awarded Kareem Abdul-Jabbar because he was working in White Rock in the Indian Reservation, the Native American community, teaching basketball.
Was he? Wow.
So he came. And then we gave an ASU Student Servant Leadership Award. And our students have been remarkable. They have, our very first student put a diabetes clinic together in Guadalupe. Another student who was an art student worked in Ebola-stricken countries using the arts to bring people along. One student who was a foster, stayed in the foster system till he was 18, created a program so that when you leave the foster system, you have a way to move forward in life. You have support. So honoring our students has been, we have such remarkable students at Arizona State University, and so that really has been a highlight of our MLK celebration. The West Campus has done the March on West. Charles St. Clair has recreated Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, and all of the local schools do a march with signs and protests, and they understand what it means, and it's around a tiny reflecting pond at West Campus. And then our Poly Campus always does a peace luncheon with someone who is active in the peace movement. So it went from a cup of coffee and a dried Danish to this larger thing where the community engages in it. We honored our community servant leader, former Mayor Neil Giuliano, one year, which was just extraordinary. So we have a way of honoring individuals who serve our community here in Tempe in the state of Arizona, as well as our young students who are going out into the world, as well as our even younger students who come to know the meaning of what servant leadership is. And Dr. King said, "He who is the greatest among you shall be your servant." So it winds up being this remarkable thing. Well, that was 2 years ago. That was in 1994, and I still oversee the Dr. King celebration for ASU, very proudly, I might add.
Yeah, you should be. That's I think I got goosebumps 6 times when you were talking about that. That is so wonderful. Let's back up a little bit to talk about your family.
Yes.
First, your parents. How did they influence you? And tell us about your parents.
So my parents influenced me greatly. My father was in the military. He was in the Air Force. And my mother, he met my mother when he was stationed in Texas, in Galveston. And they raised the three of us in 13 states and 2 foreign countries before I went off to college. So my mother, who came from a tiny little town, League City, in Texas, wound up being a woman of the world. She knew how, she was the general. She knew how to get it together, organize us, get us moved, and get us in a new place, because often my dad wouldn't go ahead of us. He wasn't with us all the time. And so we learned how to get up early. You never start your journey late, you get up early. We know how not to hoard. Now, that was then, not now. And I think because of that experience, I'm a tremendous hoarder. It's like a terrible thing. But you can only take the bare minimums with you. We also learned that wherever we were, it was important to understand the place. So before we even unpacked a box, my dad had laid out things. Whether we were in Okinawa and we went to the Yanabaru Harvest Festival, or we were stationed in South Dakota and we went in search of Devil's Tower. Like once my dad said, I heard they have black squirrels in Canada. So we went in search of black squirrels. I mean, we learned that where we were, there was something important about that. So my parents taught us that. My parents gave us 3 sacred texts. So my siblings, my brother Carl, who's no longer with us, was a very gifted musician. And my sister Cheryl, who's the baby of the family, who speaks 7 languages, who went to work for Mitterrand in France and actually has lived in France. She currently is in the Bahamas, but has lived in France and Taiwan and Abu Dhabi and Bahrain. So the 3 of us never stopped traveling. We just, even after my father retired from the Air Force, we kept traveling. But their 3 sacred texts to us were, first, you will be a success if you broaden your horizons. And so it was the most amazing, freeing gift that you could give a child. That's your whole job in life, is to broaden your horizons. And secondly, you must give back. So my first give back, I was 10 years old, and I was in charge of the Mother's March of Dime for our community, and I got all of our friends together, our kids together, and we got our tin cans, and your cardboard cans, and you went from house to house, and you raised money. So we were always told, you have to give back. That was really important. And then the third thing, my father, the pragmatist, said, get a job, get a job, get a job. And he would say, work, you cannot run away from work. Little did you know how much the world would change, and sometimes you had to find your work. But those were the 3 sacred texts that guided all 3 of us as we went forward with our adventures.
Oh, what a blessing to have his influence, and your mom too.
Well, my mom always said, you stand on the shoulders of those who come before you and know that you have a responsibility. So it's, and it wasn't even like, oh, I have to remember this. It was like,
so ingrained in.
It was from the beginning. Mm-hmm. It was from the beginning.
Wow. Oh. Tell us a little bit about your husband. You told us that
yes,
he's a volcanologist.
We met at Colorado State University. I was completing my graduate studies, and he was completing his undergraduate studies. And we were both involved with a student programming group. There was SAB, the Student Arts Board, and C-Board, the community board. And so we were involved with those. And actually, I was dating someone else at the time, and 3 of my girlfriends said, hey, do you know that Kurt Roggensack? I'd really like to meet him. I said, I'll take him out. I'll ask him out, and I'll see what he's like and let you know. Then I married him. I don't think they spoke to me for a really long time. They finally did. And we went, nothing I do in life is this straight line and, hey, let's do this, let's get married. It was like, I have things to do, you have things to do. I left Colorado State and went to work in Santa Fe, New Mexico at the Western States Art, which was then called the Western States Arts Foundation. It's now called the Western States Arts Federation. And my job was to work in 14 Western states, including Alaska and Hawaii, and meet with state arts agency people, meet with artists, meet with presenters, of which I am now, meet with funders, and then help them to understand grant making, how do you do fundraising, touring, a number of other things. The National Endowment for the Arts divided the US into 7 territories, and West Staff was its largest territory. So on any given week, I could be in Alaska, then be in Hawaii, then be in Idaho. And so it was a great job for me because I like to travel and meet with people. So we did that, and then Kurt went on to Dartmouth to work on his PhD. And then my mentor, Shelton Stanhill, who I worked with in Colorado, had gone to Dartmouth to run the program there, and he called me and he said, "What do you think about us working together again?" I went, "Ugh, I don't think so." And he said, "Well, why don't you come out? Like, no obligations, no nothing. Just come out." And I thought, well, my boyfriend's there. He was then my boyfriend, not my fiance just yet. I said, so I'll go out and, I get a free trip and see what it's like. And I got that out there, and it was great. Dartmouth was really an interesting place, very different than Colorado State, very different than the Western States Arts Foundation where I was working. And it was a private Ivy League school with all of the trappings of private Ivy League, which essentially meant they had money. And so all these times when I had spent raising money to do the things I needed to do, I was gifted with a series of endowments. So my job was like not only to spend the endowment, but to bring only the best. At Dartmouth there was a saying, is it better than HYP? Harvard, Yale, Princeton. So everything was like, is HYP doing this? I go, no, we're ahead of them. Okay, we should do that. So it was a very different environment, small and rural in that sense in Hanover, New Hampshire. And so we actually got married in Brownsville, Vermont. We got married near the Skunk Hollow Tavern in Vermont.
And do you have more than one? You talked about
we just have one amazing daughter, and I like to say, if you do it right, you don't have to do it again. And then there's another saying that says, never let them outnumber you. And God won't give you more than you can handle. So she is a remarkable woman. She too had this natural curiosity about life and about everything. We were very fortunate. She only went to 2 schools here in Arizona. She went to the Awakening Seed School in Tempe, founded in Tempe by Dr. Mary Glover, who is a Buddhist. And she formulated this school, which just was an amazing school. And it was about life and learning and not how to study for a standardized test. And it was you grew a garden so you could understand crop yields. There was a club of math for girls. She had a buddy reader who was autistic and taught him so much, and he taught her so much. And she had a senior pal at Adelaide. It was Adelaide, and they would play the piano together, and Adelaide was in her 90s, and they would go to the senior home. Mary is a remarkable educator, and so we felt so fortunate to find that school. And how we found that school, when you think about Arizona and Tempe, oh my goodness, I just can think of all of his grocery stores, AJ's.
Oh, Eddie Bash.
Yes, thank you. Eddie Bash's wife had an elder care and a child care, Nadine, who we're still friends today, had an elder care and a child care consulting program. And so when ASU made us the offer, they connected us to Nadine. And Nadine interviewed us, and there's like this book of questions. And then she said, well, here's where we think Kelsey should go to school. And she first went to the Campus Children's Center. Well, no. Her very first school was the Tri-City JCC here in Tempe. So we celebrated all the Jewish holidays, not just the high holidays, but like Sukkot and all the others. And Isabel and Esther were her Jewish Grammys who took care of her when she was little. So she was at the Tri-City JCC, and then she went to the Campus Children's Center, which is a wonderful place. A lot of faculty kids and staff kids are there, and it's very close to the campus, so we could all go in together and come out. So when she was ready for elementary school or kindergarten, that's when Nadine had suggested the Awakening Seed School, and we got on the list before we moved here. And it was just how they taught and who they were. And Mary's amazing. And so when it came time for her to leave the Awakening Seed School, a group of mothers who I still have a Mother's Alliance, and some of those mothers were still together. We all said, well, our children just can't go to any school. They've been seeds. So we got to figure out what to do. So we made this list of questions, and we would interview schools. And we interviewed our neighborhood schools, and then we went and interviewed Arizona School for the Arts. And so then, but part of the deal is not just what we wanted, but what did our children want? And so they went for a shadow day, and Kelsey came out of ASA and went, this is my school. So she did Awakening Seed School, and she did Arizona School for the Arts. And she went there from the 6th grade, because the seed went from the 5th grade through high school. And it was a great experience, a great learning experience. And people think of it as an art school, but it's an arts and science school. And all of the students there, also Mary, and the wonderful job she did with the seed, our seeds had never taken standardized tests. So we were like, oh my God, girls, you have to take a standardized test. Every seed who took a standardized test was great at it. But more importantly, they were given this moral core that reinforced what we were teaching at home. And I'll tell you a story about someone we just lost recently, Elsie Moore, who is a professor at ASU, a tenured professor, and A. Wade Smith, her husband, who passed on quite some time ago, was our first tenured African-American professor, and we have a lecture series after him. And Elsie was very profound in doing things. Well, Elsie's boys were older than Kelsey, but they went to the seed. But the seed only went up to like the 3rd grade, I think then. And so then they transferred into a public Tempe school. And they are African-American, and they were out on the playground, and a child on the playground called one of Elsie's sons nigger. And all of the seed kids took that kid to the principal's office, it makes me cry, and said, we don't do that in our community. We don't treat each other with disrespect. And the principal looked at those kids, and so it wasn't Elsie's son, looked at those kids and said, did you all go to the Awakening Seed School? And they said, yes, we did. Because the seed taught them about community and the importance of taking care of each other and empowerment. So I can't think of a greater blessing. Kelsey also found her very best friend in the world, Tinsley Andrews, at the Awakening Seed School, and now Tinsley's on the board of the school there. Oh. So it's still, the seed still plays a profound role in our lives, and Kelsey's arranged for Mary to officiate her wedding whenever that is, soon I hope. And so it's really an amazing school, and founded here in Tempe, in Mary's garage. Started out with 10 students in Mary's garage.
That is great to hear about, because no one else has talked about that. Yeah. So that
Dr.
is very
Mary
interesting.
Glover, the Awakening Seed School.
What is Kelsey doing now?
Oh my goodness, my little amazing, my mother who has passed away would call her the little Amazon. So when she decided that she was ready to go to college, she had been a swimmer from the time she was a little fish, along with her friends Tinsley and her friends, the Gannis girls, both Alexis and Cassie. They all were on the same swim team together. And Kelsey continued swimming, as did her friend Tinsley, all the way through college. But they trained at the Mona Plummer Aquatic Complex.
Oh, there you go.
And she was in Sun Devil Aquatics. So they had Sparky on their backside. And she said, Mom, and she was fortunate enough, she got recruited by ASU, but she said to the coach, I've been swimming with Sparky on my backside for a long time. It's time for me to look elsewhere. So she applied to a series of school, and she and her dad went on the traditional dad goes on that trip with them to look at colleges. And I happened to have gone to Williams College for an artist retreat. And I came back and I said, you have to look at Williams College. So she and her dad are on the trip. She said, I'm not gonna look at Williams College. And Dad said, you know your mom. If you don't look at that, we're gonna have to deal with it. And so she did all East Coast schools, and it sort of made sense. And she was the last baby girl born at the Dartmouth Mary Hitchcock Hospital when it was on the campus of Dartmouth. So she was like looking East Coast. And they went to Williams. And she met with the swim coach there, and because she was also a swimmer, she had 5 NC2A trips, so she could get on a plane and go by herself, also these other things. And she came out and she looked at her dad and said, don't tell Mom, this is my school. And it was her school. Williams College is an incredible school. The education is fierce. It's 1,800 students, I think, at the time, and they have a $8 billion endowment. I mean, it's old school, old money, but the professors there have a great care and what you're learning and how you learn. And in fact, I would meet with some of them when they're there, and they have this budget, every professor, to take students to dinner, to do special things. Yeah, I know Dwayne's over there looking, going, oh, really? Yeah, that's what little small private schools are like. And so she went there and just loved it. And she had a great freshman year. She swam on the team all 4 years, was an All-American, was what was called a junior advisor. She was a Barrows Fellow. She just didn't go to school. She engaged in everything there. She graduated on the dean's list. And so when she left there, she went on to Boston. No, she came home. And so we were like, well, what are you going to do with your life? And she said, oh, I don't know. And then we said, well, you have to go do something. You have to figure out what it is. And she goes, why? And I always have a saying I say to young people, figure out where you want to live. Then you can figure out what you want to do. Because once you understand where you're going to live, you'll make a deeper commitment there. So she said, I think I want to live in Boston. Off she went to Boston with no job, no nothing. We helped her get settled. And she met a friend, a Williams alum, who was running the campaign for Dr. Donald Berwick for governor. So she joined the campaign and raised money for Dr. Berwick. And he is the head of IHI, the International Health Institute. And I just remember we had dinner at his home with his wife, and he said, your daughter's amazing. We go out to dinner with someone, and she goes, that's really lovely. How much are you contributing to the campaign? And I really think you could make a bigger gift than that. And he said he would just sit there and she would just raise money. So she really loved it. They took Dr. Berwick from being a not known candidate to third, which was amazing. And he's a marvelous man. And then she went from there. I got a call from a friend saying, hey, I just hired at Emerson College a development officer. And I said, oh, that's nice. And he said, yeah, her name is Colleen Jennings-Roggensack. And I went, what? And he said, she was amazing. And so we just hired her. I said, you didn't even call me. He said, I wasn't going to call you. And so she worked at Arts Emerson for a couple of years. And then she said, I'm ready for Fulbright. I'm ready to go on and continue broadening my horizons. And I said, oh, that's great. I said, but there's the Watson, there's a number of those programs. Why don't you apply a lot of them? She goes, no, I want a Fulbright, and I only want to go to Indonesia. I went, oh, way to narrow your chances. So she was great. She decided she would do that. And Barb, I had to think about Barb's last name. She was a dean at ASU. She's no longer with us. She passed away. And Barb and I used to work out together at Sun Devil Fitness Center. And Barb said, well, I'll help her write her paper. And then our friend, Julie Emperano, who's another ASU professor, said, I'll help her with her Fulbright writing. Actually, Julie helped her with her college writing. Barb helped her with her Fulbright writing. And lo and behold, she got her first Fulbright. Notice I said first. And went to Indonesia. She went to Gorontalo. She taught in a boarding school for Muslim boys and girls and lived in this village. And she did that for a year, and then she finished up her Fulbright and went to Jakarta to work at the Jakarta Post as an editor and a reporter. And she did that for another year, and then while she was surfing in Lombok, she said, I'm going to apply to grad schools. And I said, oh, great. I'm kind of like a tiger mom, but not really. And so she said, and I'm only going to apply to Harvard. And I went, oh, okay. And she wrote her papers and she applied to the Harvard School of Education and she got in. And she went there and received her master's degree. And then she said, and now I think it's time for me to have another Fulbright and I want to go back to Indonesia. So she got her second Fulbright and this time went to Salatiga. And there's a university in Salatiga and she went there to study. And while she was at Salatiga, her boyfriend she'd met on her first Fulbright, he had gone on to Cornell. And she said, I think I'll go to Cornell. And I went, are you following him? She goes, no, I just don't know what I want to do yet. And she got a job as the assistant to the head of the veterinary medicine school. And she loved doing that, and he loved her doing that. But she said, I really need to get my PhD. She said, so I'm going to apply. And she got her first response from Northwestern, and they gave her a full ride. And then she got another response from Columbia. And she said, no, I'm going to go to Cornell. And lo and behold, she got her PhD. She's in her PhD program at Cornell. She's finishing up her A-level test. And after she finishes those up, and they will all be successful, she can then call herself a PhD candidate. She spoke at the C19 conference, the only graduate student asked to speak. Her area of study is post-Reconstruction Civil War. And they have their own conference. Go figure. Everybody has a conference. So and so she delivered a paper and then went to Albania for a week. I said, when I was in graduate school, I didn't have any money. I couldn't go anywhere. She said, well, I'd saved up. So she went to Albania and she came back, and then she will begin her research. She got a grant from the Smithsonian, so she'll be in Washington, D.C. June, July, and August. And then the state of Texas gave her a research grant, and she'll be in Austin from September to December. And she's waiting to hear about one more grant, which will take her through the spring, and then she'll write her dissertation.
Oh,
she's a great kid, and she has the biggest heart.
Wow.
She volunteers at cat shelter, and we have 5 cats. She's always volunteered at a cat shelter, so she does that. When she was at Williams, she taught young people in town to swim, so she did teaching. And then obviously one of the reasons she went to Indonesia is it's an archipelago of 18,000 islands, and people don't know how to swim. And there's lots of drownings, and in particular, young women don't know how to swim. And the boarding school she was at had an Olympic-sized pool, and the only one in it was Kelsey. So she would bring the girls in and teach them how to swim.
wow.
Which was really amazing. Yeah, I mean, you live in an archipelago and you don't know how to swim is a little scary, but
Oh, wow. Well,
so she's
you
an
have
amazing kid and
lots-
loves to laugh and loves to have a good time.
Now, through your travels, what perspective does that give you of Tempe? You've been here a long time, but you've also had the blessing of traveling all over the world when you were
What's
younger.
amazing
And now,
is I feel like I've grown up with Tempe. I feel like Tempe maybe wasn't a baby when I got here, but certainly was a preteen. So to go through like the founding of the Tempe Arts Center, my very dear friend Diane Kripe was instrumental in that happening, and our children all went to the sea together. That's how we know each other. And to know when Neil was mayor, and I'm a long-term devout Democrat, and Neil was Republican at that time, but he was a wonderful person and believed in the things I believed in, so I worked on Neil's campaign. And we talked about an art center, what should that be like? And I said, Neil, you must take a group and you have to go to the Netherlands. Because what I've discovered in my travels is the Dutch, however efficient they may be, they understand culture. And all of their art centers, it's not just the art center. There's a cafe, there's a cinema, there's a performance space, there's a hanging out lounge. They were smoking, so there was a smoking space. And so people came to the art center not to necessarily come and see a performance, but it was a destination. So from those travels, I could work with Neil and work with our city mayor, our manager, and talk about the kinds of places I would have the team go and look at things. And then I helped to not only interview the architect, but when Tempe did its strategic planning, cultural planning, I've been a part of that committee for a very long time. So I've always felt like culturally, I've grown up with Tempe. I was chair of the Tempe Convention and Visitors Bureau, which is now Tempe Tourism 3 times. So I always felt like I was a downtown Tempe business person, so that was very important. I worked on the downtown committee and the Mill Avenue committee, and seeing that Mill Avenue grew well and that we were committed to things, discussing everything from our homeless teen situation to those birds in the trees pooping on the ground, which was one of the things I'm very proud of, that we figured out how to resolve that, to even talking with Dan Harkins and about keeping his father's first cinema alive here in Tempe. So I feel like I've grown up with Tempe, and in fact the latest changes with Marabella and having a planned seniors vertical space here, the Marabella people asked me would I be the moderator at the groundbreaking. So there are 900 people there, and I could talk about Marabella, but also talk about its proximity to ASU Gammage, its proximity to the Tempe Center for the Arts, its proximity to the businesses downtown. I have very dear friends. Robin and Bob Trick are very dear friends of mine. My heart is breaking, but we honored them last week at the Hadestown opening night, celebrating the work that they had done in not just bringing us amazing cuisine, but Robin's commitment to downtown. We served on the Super Bowl committee together. I did a charrette for the city of Tempe on how to do the Super Bowl. When Then Senator Obama came. Robin hosted a breakfast and we had a speech because our own dear Harry Mitchell was running for his first federal office. Then, so I really feel like I've watched Tempe come into its own and have had a hand in helping Tempe to come into its own. And Robin and Bob Tricks, we honored them. They're in our magazine this month, Inner Circle. We put them in the program, celebrated them. Every artist we have ever had, hundreds of thousands of artists, that includes companies and individual artists, they go to House of Tricks. And they all say, no matter where in the world they're from, this is the most amazing restaurant. The ambiance, the food, the chef, the just, Robin's care, and the fact that she was a visual artist and the visual arts that's there. So I've really watched people who believe in Tempe make a difference, not in just their own business, but in all of Tempe. When Tempe Beach Park was funded, in meeting with the architects who were building, the Japanese designers building the dam, and then the dam breaking, and kind of doing that when the bridge was washed out and we couldn't go in. I mean, there were just so many different things that we were part of. And even when 9/11 happened, and working with Tempe and looking at things that needed to change, like we had spent a lot of money at our Mona Plumber putting in a chlorine system, but that was something that could be used against us. So we took the chlorine system out and now we're back using, tabs again, but being a part of that, of saying, oh, Gammage might be a place where people might come if they're in need of shelter, and how might that work, and what might we do there? Hosting the first ever presidential debate in the American Southwest here in Tempe at ASU Gammage, with then President Bush and Senator John Kerry. We had 3,500 members of the international press come, and they were all in Spinelli on the historic Gammage Curve in a tent there. And here on the news you hear Tempe, Arizona, Tempe, all over the world in different languages. And Dr. Crow was brand new as a president there, so to have my brand new president on every morning show around the world doing things there. I literally moved into the Tempe Mission Palms. Ken was such an amazing general manager. We did so many things with Tempe Mission Palms, but moving in there so I could be there with the Democrats and the Republicans as we, unfold the debate, and then having Secret Service there, and then how to open it up, because traditionally they like to keep it small. And I said, Frank Lloyd Wright designed this building for 3,017 people. How could we really only have 20? And what does it matter if it's 20 or 20,000? And luckily the Secret Service agreed, and we were able to have students. Our mayor then was Hugh, and I put him in a position so that whenever the camera hit a certain way, he and his mother, he was sitting with his mother, were always on camera. And he was like, I was there. So being able to make sure that Tempe was in the spotlight. Arizona State University, of course, was in the spotlight. Gammage was in the spotlight, but Tempe was in the spotlight. So to do those things. And I would say one of the most, people say, what was your favorite show?
Yes.
I don't have a favorite show. What I have is a favorite moment. And that's when Senator Goldwater said where he would like to have his home going was in Gammage. So we laid Senator Goldwater to rest. The entire House and Senate and the White House came on planes to Gammage. Every politician came to say farewell to our favorite son. And we had a flyover. We also had protesters. It was like quite the thing. We erected screens outside because we were packed. Carlos Nakai, the Native American flute player, played. We had a gospel singer. Senator Goldwater was a member of the honorary member of several tribes, and it was remarkable. And here it was in Tempe. Senator Goldwater said, "This and all of Arizona is where I want to say goodbye. It's my last goodbye." And Susan was wonderful. His wife was wonderful. But it was pretty extraordinary. When President Clinton, the first president, living president since Teddy Roosevelt, was coming to Tempe, wanted to do his Bridge to the Future speech on the arm of Gammage. So we had President Clinton here doing that, and people, again, from all over the world coming to Tempe. Coming to Tempe. So I feel like this year I was honored to receive from Mayor Corey the Tempe Individual Impact Award, and you get a yard sign. And I really loved it. And so that was like remarkable. And when I'm very fortunate that my team at ASU Gammage was like, we're gonna do this. Yep, what are we gonna do? Super Bowl 30, when I was selected to be one of the vice presidents of the Super Bowl, the Arizona Super Bowl committee, I said, we're gonna do something spectacular. What will that be? And Michael Furr, who was from the Radio City Music Hall, was the director, and we had known each other from my Broadway work. And he said, well, what we want to do is have Diana Ross come, and McDonnell Douglas, big corporation here, has a NOTAR, a helicopter with no tail. Oh. And we want to land it in the field, and we want to put Diana Ross in it. And I was like, okay, that's my job. That's what I will do. And so I was in charge of the Super Bowl concert committee and then the halftime show. And I remember the time Fife Symington was governor, and we had a meeting. And it was a meeting with 80 lawyers from the NFL, not kidding, plus our university general counsel, and the governor, and Jim, I have to think about his last name, who was the head of the Super Bowl for the NFL, Jim Steig. And we met in what was then Desert Financial Arena in a room, and we were all in there, and the governor came in. And the pilot for the NOTAR was French, but he spoke English, but he was French. And so the governor was there, and the governor would say, well, tell me how safe it is. And he would say in his French accent, which I cannot do, my sister would be appalled. But he would say in a French accent that, he's done the wind measurements and these other things. And the governor looked at me and said, what did he say? And so I said, he said that the wind instruments and what we're going to do this. And then someone from the NFL, the lawyer, would ask a question. And they would look at me and say, what did he say? So for 2 hours, I interpreted a man who was actually speaking English with a French accent to everyone else. Like, they just stopped looking at him. They would look at me. And then he would say, it's so safe, I'm going to bring my son. And they would go, what? And I said, it's so safe, his son is going to be in there. His son's going to be in that space. And so they were like, oh, okay. And of course, the league wanted this more than anything. It was going to be spectacular. This has never been done before. And the governor, of course, wanted cover. And so we finished up our 2-hour meeting, and the governor said, Colleen, walk me to the car. And I said, okay. And everybody was just there, and the pilot was just there. And I walked the governor down to the car, and he said, so what do you think? And I said, so here's the deal, governor. We're going to have 1,500 school kids singing, We Are the World. If that helicopter goes down and wipes out those kids, everybody's head will roll. None of us will escape this. But if it doesn't happen, this will be the most amazing thing that has ever happened. And McDonnell Douglas will be over the moon. And Diana Ross, who was completely freaked out and refused to fly, I said, let me take care of that. I'll have a conversation. So the governor said, okay, let's do it. I said, okay. So I went back in the room, and they were all there. And I whispered to the pilot, go, he goes, we started speaking French, and they all went. I said, he said he's happy we're going to do it. And so we did it. So meeting with Miss Ross, who I had worked with before, even before I had come here, who was a diva of the highest regard, was freaked out about flying, and let alone being strapped on the doors of a helicopter taking off. And so she was on the stage, and we were changing clothes. And I said, you know what, Miss Ross, you can sing every song, you do everything, and we'll put a stunt double in there. And she was like, a stunt double? The only thing bigger than that helicopter was her ego. But the time came, and the kids sang their songs, and then right before the helicopter landed, Michael Furr came over, and it was Michael, myself, and Jim Steig, and he went, oh my God, what if the helicopter causes someone to have a heart attack? I went, whoa, it is way too late for that. This is like way too late. It doesn't matter. And Jim and Michael and I were on the ground. We were right there as the helicopter landed, because I said, if it's going to go down, we might as well be underneath. And then we strapped her in, and off she went. And it was the most watched Super Bowl ever, I think, until Katy Perry, I think, but for a very long time, it was the highest watched Super Bowl.
Wow.
It was extra. I don't know if you remember. And everybody had cards, and they flipped over the cards, and they became children holding hands around the circle. I got a beautiful note from Paul Tagliabue about, how wonderful that was.
Wow.
But again, where did that happen? Tempe, Arizona. Tempe, Arizona. And I don't know if we'll have another Super Bowl in Tempe. So that was extraordinary. The first in the state, the first in the American Southwest, and maybe the only here in Tempe.
Wow. And you have such confidence and vision. I can't help but ask, do you get nervous?
Everyone's nervous. Everyone, if you're not nervous, you're dead. But the thing I believe in is you have done your preparation. So you can make it happen. I am also a USA Swim official. I'm a referee, and a friend of mine came who was a producer for public television, Elise, and she said, how do you do this? And I said, it's like a show. So the swimmers, that's the company. This is the crew. These are the people. I said, it's like doing a show. It's like doing a Broadway show, only it's in a pool. And it's the same, those skills are so amazingly transferable. And you also have amazing people who you believe in. And my staff are those people. And the best thing that I do is let them do what they do really well and get out of their way. I am not a micromanager. I hire them because they are better at what they do than I could ever be. So there's kind of nothing to be nervous about. And I find when things kind of blow up and something happens, I get really calm. I'm not a chicken with my head cut off. I just get really calm because I start to think about, what do we need to do? Mm-hmm. Oh, Mickey Rooney is too drunk to go on stage. Let me think a moment about how we need to do this. And there's no cover, and those things are going to happen. I'm in the arts. The arts are messy because they're done by people, and people are messy. So messy is normal. It's not unnormal. So if things don't go exactly as you think they should go, they're meant to go another way. And you go with it.
Now there's so many wonderful, amazing, exciting shows that come to Gammage. How do you select? How do you decide which shows?
I just left 2 weeks of 4 openings and 8 shows. And I have so much more work to see because COVID has kind of put everything in. Not only we're cramming it all into this time, now I go to the theater and go, oh, thank goodness, all the leads are here. Because when you're a Tony voter, and I'm the only Tony voter in the state, you can't see, I hope my face wasn't really red the whole time. Oh, thank goodness, my lipstick. You can't vote in a category if you haven't seen that actor. So you could be in there and they go, oh my goodness, they have a sub, which means you have to see that show again. So now I'm just grateful that they're there. But when I see something, I do head, heart, gut. And it hits me in my gut, it resounds in my heart, and then it stays in my head. And I see that and I say, Tempe deserves this. Arizona deserves this. And it's just so great, even when it's hard. So the first time Tony Kirshner's award-winning Tony Obie Drama Desk Award-winning Angels in America came out, I went, we need to do this. I think I had been here 2 years. We have business partners in Broadway across America, and they're like, you're gonna ruin the series. And I said, nope, we're gonna do Angels in America. And they're like, no. And I go, yes. And I met with Tony Kirshner, and I met with the company, and I said, we're gonna bring you. And they were afraid. They said, oh, Angels in America, the Perestroika and the Millennium Approaches, 8-hour show about gay, AIDS, the Mormon Church, the Catholic Church, the Jewish synagogue, full frontal male nudity. I said, we can do this. Now, I believe in 3 things. I believe you should turn over first you should tell people, I'm gonna turn over the tables. Then you should say, I'm turning over the tables. And then you stick around and clean up the mess. So before we brought Angels, I met with 68 leaders in the community. I brought them copies of the play. I met with every religious leader. I met with the bishop, Bishop O'Brien. I met with the head of the Rabbinical Union. I met with the head with the Mormon Information Church. And I said, I am not saying this is for everyone. I am asking you not to protest against this. But here's what it is. We sent teachers, religious leaders, young people to see the show. We flew them out there and said, I want you to see, I want you to know. We sent legislators. I said, I want you to see this. And so everybody knew. And I said, and again, we tell people what it is. We don't say, oh, for a mature audience. I say, look, gay, AIDS, full frontal nudity, this is it, 8 hours. Make your decision. And it's not for everyone. And if you don't want to come, don't come. We not only sold out for 2 weeks, Laddie Core was president then, and he said, you know, when we win an ASU football game, I get complaint letters. He said, I got 3 letters on this. 2 praising us that we were able to do it, and a 3rd one complaining. He goes, I never get 3 letters on anything, but I also, A, informed President Crow, and B, did not do it during the budget cycle. A couple things you gotta be smart about. You know, you just don't do things. So, yes. So that was one of those shows that looms large in my mind. I think it's really extraordinary. Obviously, big spectacles like The Lion King, which also has this grounding in African culture, and Julie Taymor's a genius. And you see kids there. That's wonderful. That's amazing. But things that may not be performances, we just did Banking While Black, and in our ASU 365, which is making the Sun Devil Stadium a year-round community center, we brought pieces of a bank from Black Wall Street, and you came and you took a deposit slip and you put it in the teller's window, and it told a story. A green slip was a deposit slip, so it told you something good that had happened in Black history. A red slip was withdrawn, told you about Black violence in Yuma, Black violence in Globe. I mean, amazing things that people didn't even know. 538 stories, and then purple was a quiz. And so we had people come from all over Tempe, all over the state. We had a deaf school come, and they said it was the best experience because they could do it themselves. Once the teacher signed it and explained it to them, they could take it and put it in there and be there for a very long time.
Oh my gosh.
So that was one of those great experiences that we've had. So there's been some remarkable things that I've been able to watch since 1992 Tempe grow, mature, get excited about, feel committed to. ASU Gammage is everyone's house. So it's Tempe's house, it's ASU's house, it's Tempe's house, it's the neighborhood houses. Neighbors walk to Gammage for things. People tell me stories how they were proposed to at a show, or how they always go with their grandmother. It's their night out with their grandmother, or it was the first time they ever heard classical music. So really remarkable, and not to mention the last building that Frank Lloyd Wright designed. Neither Mr. Wright nor President Gammage lived to see it completed, but they had the vision. You know, President Gammage said a great university deserves a great performing arts center, so he and Mr. Wright were friends, and they walked the campus, and Mr. Wright put his stick down and said, here we will build a building with outstretched arms that says, welcome to Arizona. It happened to be the women's athletic fields, which they seem to have no problem in giving away, but that's what's there. Now, the original plan was for Baghdad. It was the Baghdad Opera House, and King Faisal II was deposed, and Mr. Wright happened to have those plans. And lucky us, it's a signature building for the state. It's an iconic building for the country. And people come from all over the world to see the building, not necessarily what's inside. So we are keepers of the temple. And we have altered and changed the temple. And thank you, Grady Gammage Jr., who actually held the shovel and dug it up, another great Tempe resident. He's also has been the head of the Historical Society. So as we said, there are changes. You know, Mr. Wright believed his building should fall down every 50 years. We don't have hundreds of millions of dollars to build another building. So we needed to alter it. And the women's restrooms, many things I will be known for in Tempe. Bringing women's restrooms to Gammage will be the #1. And we went from, Mr. Wright designed it with 40 stalls for men and 24 for women in a theater with 3,017 seats. So we worked with Taliesin. We worked with a number of design engineers, and we've added 118 stalls in there for women, which is just remarkable. So that I know that's going to be on my tombstone. And she brought women's restrooms to Gammage.
It really is an amazing experience for, I mean, you have people that, like you said, come from all over the world, and they're season ticket holders that, you know, get to enjoy shows all the time. And then there are people that only get to go once. And it's an experience, like you said, maybe they're
Yes.
proposed to, or
Yes.
maybe they're seeing one of their favorite performers for the only time,
Right.
or something. So it's just an incredible place,
You know,
for
and
a diverse group of people.
You bring up such a great point, because I tell our artists who perform there, know when you're performing tonight, one person in that house will never have seen an art event ever in their life, and they're depending on you. I'll tell you a very interesting thing. When I first came in 1992, the first show I saw there was Evita. And I sat in the theater and I was ready for the curtain to go up. And it went up on a very tired, very bad Evita, where the company really were phoning it in. It's a theatrical term, but not giving me 110%. So I went backstage to look for company manager, and I was walking past the dressing rooms, and we have a call board, which had you put messages on it. And on it, the big message was, we really have to gear up because we're going on to Costa Mesa or Orange County, and that's a real theater town. I took the note down. I called the producer, and I said, if you ever hope to work in this town again, you will get on a plane here tomorrow and meet with me and meet with the company and explain to them how this is a real theater town. And they cannot phone it in. He did that. He was like on the late night flight. He was there in the morning.
Love
he was
it.
in their face. And then but the word spread. So the word in New York spread, and they went, Colleen, she's going to demand more of us. And that's what I've done. And that's what we get. We get the best. And whether it's a classic and a revival or it's a brand new work, people who come here know this is a theater town. And I'll tell you a story. Frost Nixon was playing, and Stacy Keach was playing in the lead. And I was in Gammage, but I was up in the Grand Tier, and I was looking for a plug. Mr. Wright did not put many plugs in that building for my cell phone. And I put it in the wall, and I sat on the steps, which meant you couldn't see me. I was like below that. And the company manager was talking with the cast from Frost Nixon, and he said, this is a great theater town. This is a great theater. I want you to walk throughout this building and understand. And I was like, he had no idea I was up there. I was just gobsmacked by it. And I then wrote a note to the producer, to the booking agent, because you work with the booking agent, and then to all of the company to say how much that meant to me. I was like a little mouse, you know, in a corner there. And when the companies meet, they generally say, where's your gas certificate? You know, where's your gas receipt? Here's your meals. They meet about some things that just keep them going, really important things. But what that company manager did was like extraordinary. And so then I knew that the word was out. The word was out. And people know when they come here, they give 110%. Because we know and we appreciate it. And all of our artists will say, what a great theater town. What a great theater audience. They are appreciative. They understand they're quiet when it should be quiet and laughing when it should be laughing. They understand the complexity of work. So I'm very proud of that.
And you know, that is really true for I don't go to a lot of shows, but I have gone to shows and then gone to House of Tricks or somewhere nearby, and then people that are in the shows go to those places and talk about exactly what you just said. I've heard it myself.
Right. It's there.
So,
it's there.
Yeah.
And when I came, we had no education program. Now we see 35,000 school children during the course of the year. We have a program called Kaleidoscope, and I remember, this is another moment, we have 150 school districts in the Valley. It's a little crazy. But we met with all of the superintendents, and I said, this is what I want to do. I want 10 teachers, 10 students, 10 schools, and we will buy your tickets, good seats to Broadway shows, and you will come to a program called Kaleidoscope. And it will be on a Saturday, so that at the changeover, the company will come and have dinner with you. And it won't be plastic plates and styrofoam cups and pizza. It will be a hot meal with china, silver, cloth napkins. And they all looked at me and went, they were just like that. And I'm like, this will never happen. 20, 30 plus years now, it's been happening. And when you see those kids, and this is the other rule, I have one rule. Those kids that come, I don't want your A students. I don't even want your B students. I want the kid who got a D, who turned it into a C, who figured out they could come to class 2 weeks in a row but didn't before. Those are the kids I want. because what I have those artists talk about is how they came into this business, not in behind the curtain, but in front of the curtain, what their education was like, what opportunities exist if you don't go to college. But I always open my remarks by saying, we hope you will all become Sun Devils. But if you're not Sun Devils, we hope you will at least think about coming to college and think about there are many opportunities for you. And it doesn't have to be singing and dancing. I always tell them, I'm renting this job. I'm holding this job for you. And when you're ready, I'll get this job on.
Oh.
So that Kaleidoscope program is wonderful. We do Operation Date Night for the military. I'm a military brat. We do our military family dinners, and we do 3 Broadway shows, dinner, and a private meeting with the cast. And my team and I raise the money for those things. Those aren't, the company's not giving us free tickets. We raise the money for that. We also do Heroes Night. So the mayor of Tempe has honored, one year we honored the military working dog who found bin Laden, and we honored the servicemen and women who work with them, the MWDs, and we do a certificate. We honored the men of the great ones, the last of the World War II vets. We honored the Tuskegee Airmen. So our ASU ROTC comes out and they present the colors and we sing the Star Spangled Banner. And I had a man write and he said, I thought patriotism was dead until I came to Gammage. Oh. And so there are these amazing things that have grown over the years that are now part of our tradition. And people come to expect. We've been in the Straya Correctional Facilities now for 28 years. We won an Emmy for the film work that we're doing, teaching women to take their mask of victimhood off. So it's people love and know the Broadway shows, but there's so much more that we do.
Yes.
And we have internship programs. We have a high schooler from ASU Tempe Prep Academy who's with us and learning about the business. So we do a lot of those things.
It's very exciting for you to be able to share about the business and the various jobs besides performing, which is fantastic, but opening up that understanding for so many more people of all those jobs is just fantastic.
And our mission's connecting communities. And one of the things to understand is communities plural. So that means community ASU, plural inside of ASU, faculty, staff, students, administrators. Communities plural Tempe. That means people who are long-term residents, new residents. Latinx, African American, Native American, Jewish, Mormon, communities. Understand, we live in a plurality of communities, and that's what we look at, connecting those communities. It doesn't say we're going to do the best of Broadway, which we do. It doesn't say we're going to educate school, which we do. But it's how do those communities connect and learn to speak to each other and listen to each other.
Yeah.
Grow.
Oh, now this is always a little bit of a strange question to ask, but it's poignant, it's important, and that is, how would you like your friends and family to remember you?
Ooh, that's so good. Well, Albert Einstein had a saying, which I believe is, you must always have a holy curiosity. I want them to remember that I lived deep in my curiosities and everyone benefited from it.
Love that. Now, is there anything that a story you wanted to share, or something about your work, family, that I didn't ask?
I think one of the things that's really interesting is the minds of young people. And we had the National Symphony Orchestra here with Leonard Slatkin, Maestro Slatkin was conducting. And Kelsey, from the time she was little until she was grown up, always went to the theater, always was at the theater. And I couldn't find her. I think she was like 5 or 6. I don't know, where is that kid? And I go backstage and she's like, I'm with Maestro Slatkin. I played him a song on the piano, and now we're watching cartoons on his DVD. And I was like, oh my gosh, people are terrified of Maestro Slatkin. And here she's going, first I played him a song, and now we're watching cartoons. And I went, oh, that's so good. So I always think about that. Like, my life, my personal life was not separated from my work life. You know, my husband loves the theater and loves music and comes, and, you know, he'll say, so-and-so is coming. Like, he's not a big, I want to go backstage and meet them, but if it's a musician that he's loved and loved the work, I always try to make sure that that happens. And our daughter grew up in the theater, so much so that they go to the symphony together without me, because they say I'm too fidgety. So they have like their own loves of the theater from that, and I think that's really important. Like, I don't leave my work at the door when I go in. It's a part of my life, just as their work is a part of my life. Her interest in pre-construction Civil War is an interest of mine. My husband's work on volcanoes is an interest of mine. We now are beekeepers, which we learned during COVID. So now I'm the beekeeper's assistant. So we learned how to ride a tandem bikes. We have tandem bicycles. You know, it's we try to live our lives fully, integrating our work and our lives, and really are respectful and celebrate each other's accomplishments.
Oh, what an inspiring example, really. We do like to open it up to have other people ask questions if they like, so.
Yeah.
Oh, Ray, you're going to ask me a question.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. This has been absolutely fascinating. I learned things about you I didn't know. If we talk to young people as they're thinking about what lies ahead for them in their careers, and you talked about career and personal life and bringing those two together, what's the best advice, best guidance we can give to a young person thinking about the future in those ways?
Follow your passion. Follow your passion, because a title or a lot of money or a fancy car will not get you up in the morning when things are hard. And things will be hard, but your passion will get you up in the morning. And you will find your passion. Now, you may not roll out of bed and find it when you're 5. You may find it when you're 55. But always be in search of that passion. And know when not to say no. People always say, learn how to say no. Know how to say, I think I could do that. Yes. Even if you don't know how to do that, you will learn how to do that. So I think that's the best advice. And learning is cradle to grave. I read, there are books all over the house that I have started, some I've finished, some I haven't. When you work for Michael Crow, I get like a book a month. That's like, you think you'll like to read this? Okay, I gotta find the time. But that is cradle to grave learning. And you learn from everyone. So my favorite person that I learned from is my daughter. She has taught me so much. Even when she was little and we were at the Seed, and I went to pick her up one day, the Awakening Seed, and she had a friend with her, and the friend had long braids. And I went, oh, I love your long braids. You're such a beautiful girl. And my daughter went, Ma, he is Native American, and that is a traditional haircut. I am so sorry. I apologize. You learn, everyone can teach you something. So I am notorious. I get a cab, I know more about that cab driver, where they're from, what they like, what they don't like. If I go to the theater and often I see so much work, I'm by myself, I sit down next to someone and I say, what brought you to the theater? I went to see Julius Caesar, and Denzel Washington and Tamara Toomey were starring in it. And there was a line of African-American women, and I said, so, who are you? And they said, we're detectives from Boston. I said, oh, you're detectives. And I said, are you fans of Shakespeare? And they said, no. We wanted to see Denzel Washington. I said, it's okay. So we got through to intermission, and I turned and I said, what do you think? They said, we'll come back to the theater, whether Denzel is here or not. And they watched to the end, and I said, so what did you think? They said, please get out of our way. We have to make it to stage door so we can see Denzel. So I always feel like I learned something from whomever I'm with.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, it has.
Can I say one more
Yes,
thing?
absolutely.
Because friends are important, and my friends are here. And we're also part of a Mother's Alliance. So we meet, and sometimes we talk about our children, sometimes we talk about books, sometimes we talk about politics, and sometimes we talk about nothing. Having women friends is so very important, especially for women. It's so important. So I want to say thank you for that. And I want to say thank you for Michelle Johnson, who has been my executive assistant since almost the whole time I have been here. And literally, I call Michelle RRT, really runs things. And she'll say, don't forget you have to get dressed for tomorrow. Don't forget you have this speech to do. Don't forget. So you must in life have someone who you depend upon to help get you through it. Michelle's that person for me.
And let's have a little shout out to your friends that are here. What are their names?
Michelle Johnson, Marcia Andrews, Kathy Gannis.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It was so enlightening beyond, what we would expect just about Gammage. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It was
a
my
pleasure.
honor. And I say Tempe first.
Thank you.